Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Shuffle Bus. I'm your host, Jesse, back with another Ashteki matchup this week. It's the round 2 matchup against my opponent, RelaxedDave. RelaxedDave is a new player to Ashes, came from L5R, so welcome to the community, Dave. Super great to have you here. Just part of my MO with the Ashteki tournament is to bring you new deck builds every single week. I'm not really honed in on, say, finalizing an individual deck, and I definitely am not trying to necessarily build the best decks in this tournament. So this week I wanted to experiment with the Shadow Hound and with Rin in particular. I think Rin is a pretty good Phoenixborn. I think he's got a decent sized spell board, decent sized battlefield. Sort of has all of the elements that make Airedale really good, but he's lacking that kill ability that Airedale has. Instead relies upon Rin's Fury as being his removal spell. And obviously that's just not as consistent as having a Water Blast on Airedale round over round. However, the Ice Buff Conjuration is a alteration. It's a Conjuration alteration. That's a mouthful. And I think it offers a lot of reach in certain decks for changing the way math works, typically with certain interactions. And I think that can be powerful when your opponent suspects a certain line of play and you're able to then change the math in a way that they weren't prepared to fight. So, for example, if you know your opponent's going to play Frostback Bear, you may play Crescendo. Obviously not legal in Ashteki, but just using it as an example here. And that 3 damage from Crescendo would kill a Frostback Bear, but it won't kill an Ice Buff Frostback Bear. And so that's just a slight minor modification to the health of the bear that forces the opponent to invest additional dice, potentially, and or additional time and or resources in the form of unit combat, things of that nature, to make the Frostback Bear go down. In this deck with Shadow Hound, one of the biggest weaknesses of Shadow Hound is AoE removal. So Cole with 100 blades is in this tournament. And Mist Typhoon, which is a nature and illusion, deal 1 to all of your opponent's units, is really bad for the Shadow Hound because you summon the Shadow Hound, and because it's a main action to summon, the opponent gets an opportunity to react. And if they have that AoE, then you just spent 3 dice to get wiped for 2, or in the case of Cole, 1. And that's just a blowout for your opponent. And so there are ways to mitigate that. One way to mitigate that is to play Particle Shield and protect your Shadow Hound with a Particle Shield. Great card. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Another way to mitigate that is with Rin. And when you play your Shadow Hound, use your side action to go ahead and put an Ice Buff on the Hound. And now your opponent has to have 2 AoE removals to kill that Hound before you commit the Hound to an attack. Once you commit the Hound to attack, you know your Hound is not going to survive, right? Like, you just have to accept that that's what it is. So you want the Hound to get as much value as possible. And I think ice buffing Hounds may be a potential way to get value out of Shadow Hound. And I've played a lot of Shadow Hound. If you go back and look at our tournament, I played Shadow Hounds with Odette in season 1 of the Shuffle Bus tournament. I love the deck. I think it does a lot of really powerful things. Unfortunately, I think Illusion just needs a couple more sort of tools, because I went really deep in Illusion in that matchup, specifically to be able to play Shadow Hound and play other cards. And the net sum result of the tournament was that I was left with a board of a bunch of 1 health units, and that left me wide open to removals, and there are just a million removal tools, nature pings on the Shadow Hound, etc. So playing Ice Buff on Shadow Hound takes a lot of that away. Obviously, it doesn't take Airedale away, right? If we Ice Buff a Shadow Hound and attack with a Shadow Hound, Airedale can just spend 1 dice and remove your Shadow Hound. That's just a fact of life. And so you may want to play or alter your play style if you're going up against an Airedale with this list. But just keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and jump into the game. I'll do some commentating to give you my thoughts on the gameplay and the lines made through this game, and we'll see on the end of it with the result. So again, I just want to thank Dave for letting me to record this as well. Super awesome of him. So let's get this party started. We're going to go full screen here because we like full screen, and let's start the game. All right, so getting started here. Our decks are selected. We hit start. Just looking at first fiving here. Well, I do have the 3 of open memories in this list. I'll talk a little bit more about that maybe if we have some time in the commentary, because ultimately what I was looking at it for was like a toolbox style card. It allows me to shift my first 5s around and draw into tech cards, essentially using open memories. I don't think it's good enough to do that. Just a heads up. But I wanted to test it in this list, and I just wish throughout the entire day that I had some different choices. So looking at my opponent's Cole list, this is exactly what I was talking about, although there's no illusion. So I know that I don't have to worry about the Mist Typhoon. So all I really have to worry about in my opponent's list is Cole's 100 blades. And so I can get around 100 blades by ice buffing the Shadow Hound. So I grab Shadow Hound, Frostback Bear, Shifting Mist, Root Armor, and a Frost Fang. The reason I go with Frost Fang Root Armor is because it puts the Frost Fang completely out of the reach of Cole, gives it an extra point of life and armor too. And so even if my opponent plays a Root Armored Hammer Knight in round 1, the Frost Fang can fight that Root Armored Hammer Knight very favorably. And I don't have to commit removal to my opponent's Hammer Knight here. And I do take the 1 of Shifting Mist here. Looks like I rolled 6 basics to Dave's 3, so I decided to go ahead and be the starting player with this list. No cards to discard. We're not going to give my opponent a lot of information, but obviously we have to aggressively meditate here. And I think, end of the day, like, I don't think Shifting Mist is a great card, but it does prove to be valuable when you're up against Cole, who likes to draw a lot of cards, because even if he plays Abundance on me, I can just use Shifting Mist and sort of play from hand and not have to worry about meditating cards off the top. Obviously, that's not going to work here in round 1, where I have to meditate 1, and I do meditate a Particle Shield. Not great for me against a Cole matchup to lose the Particle Shield, but still feeling really confident about my first 5 decisions here. It's still asking me to meditate. Yep. So I just stop the meditation. I go ahead and play the Shifting Mist because I can get 2 dice on sides that I want without additional meditation. And so while I can't play the Frostback Bear yet, I'm going to be able to make a Frostback Bear with everything else I have up. And so really it's just a matter of then meditating 2 more times for the Shadow Hound if it makes relevant sense. Obviously, we will probably do that at some point here, but no need to show all of that to my opponent right away, right? I just showed that I needed to make a Shifting Mist, and now my opponent doesn't know what I'm going to transition. It gives me opportunity to transition that Charm die. It gives me an opportunity to do a couple of different things, and obviously threatening the single charm has a lot of value in terms of just like, what is it that I have? I could have Redirect, I could have Golden Veil, I could have a Sympathy Pain, right? Like, those are all things that my opponent has to worry about. So Dave drops a Frostback Bear book, so we're going to have very similar opens here, where I'm going to Shifting Mist into a Frostback Bear book. He's going to get his bear online first because I Shifting Misted versus playing bear. He drops a Chant of Revenge. Chant of Revenge doesn't do anything when he's just playing bear. So that definitely kind of confirms to me that he is 100% on the Root Armored Hammer Knight play, which is what I suspected when I looked at the dice. And Ashteki Root Armored Hammer Knights right now, with this tournament where you just have the Master set and then the 4 monocolor sets of Brennan, Leo, Vicky, and Rin, you just kind of know those are things that your opponent is probably bringing to the table, because Root Armored Hammer Knight is a very big threat, and there are only a handful of ways to properly deal with the Root Armored Hammer Knight in this format. You can cut the strings and remove the root armor, which obviously gives you some favorable exchange, but it costs you more dice to do that. You can Dispel if you have tech cards of Dispel in your deck. I'm not sure I really want to deal with it that way. I just tend to want to play 2 Shadows and Fadeaways on the unit, and you have to be careful because if your opponent has to cut the strings themselves, they can drop your Fadeaway off. So you have to watch that when you're considering how to fight a Root Armored Hammer Knight in this tournament. So I pass it back to Dave. He goes ahead and makes that Frostback bear, totally expecting that. I'm good with the bear here. And so there's a couple of things we can threaten now. We can just go ahead and threaten the root armored Frost Fang. I think we're going to end up holding the root armor because we're. I didn't think through this entirely correct. This is the first time I played the deck, and I didn't have enough nature dice in my list. I had overcommitted on illusion dice probably by 1, and undercommitted on nature dice by 1. So for this opening, I can't even play the Frost Fang into the root armor, or I'm giving up the Frostback bear for the turn. And I think ultimately the best play is just to go ahead and play Frost Fang with an ice buff. We sort of get to the same level. We take away the Cold Slash effectiveness. He could have slashed me here, but I know that he probably doesn't want to play with 5 cards, but it's possible that the correct play for Dave is to go ahead and discard a ally because he just has the ceremonial dice ready to go to bring it back. And so he could, slash me here for a point of damage and discard an ally and recur it, and he takes a point of damage. So he's kind of on a similar track. So yeah, we go ahead and commit to the Hammer Knight here. I think that's completely acceptable, or to the Frostback bear, excuse me. I think that's completely acceptable. We're going to do the meditation now because we're going to prep. We're going to go ahead and prep the illusion dice, threaten the illusion dice. So we lose a Massive Growth and we lose an Iron Worker. Neither one of those are big hits to this deck. Massive Growth is kind of a win more in this deck because this deck is really grindy. It's not really, it's about small incremental advantages, built up over time. And so when we really look at how we're trying to do that, it's through cards like Shadow Hound and the non-interactivity of the Shadow Hound. And it's looking at, okay, what are my options for taking out my opponent's units, and how do I change the combat math and punish my opponent as much as possible. So he is meditating a final cry to gain a nature ping. Going to ping that bear and try to attack that bear. And we're going to let Rin tank that hit because this is the only unit he's threatened so far. And if he plays and he makes a second ping nature, but if he goes ahead and plays his Hammer Knight, then what we get into is a situation where that potentially that last card is a Sleeping Widows. So we're expecting a nature ping here, and we're expecting Sleeping Widows, or we're expecting a root armor. And if he goes the root armor route, which is what I'm suspecting is going to happen, he can't ping my bear at that particular point. So one thing that I can threaten very effectively now is the Frost Fang with the Armored 1 and an ice buff. And so most likely I'll leave the bear and I'll buff the Frost Fang. So we go ahead and play the Frost Fang, and we go ahead and use the ice buff ability on the Frost Fang. And this just makes the Frost Fang a 3/2 with Armored 1. That starts to get in line with Hammer Knight. It does die to the Hammer Knight still at this stage, but if he just attacks with Hammer Knight, we'll just let Rin take the damage. Rin's got a nice healthy pool of 17 health here. We still have the Shadow Hound in hand, which means that there's a variety of different ways we can approach sort of dealing with this Hammer Knight, unless if it gets root armor, then it changes the math a little bit. But we have some removal tools in the list, so I think we're okay right now. I mean, I would say if you're just looking at current board state, Dave has a slight advantage over us. Very likely that bear, if it dies, turns into 2 Sleeping Widows. That's just 4 damage. Those are things that we have to worry about. There's the root armor. So we did make the correct call on what our opponent was doing in round 1. One of the interesting things here is that we'd have to commit all of our units to killing the Hammer Knight. That seems very bad for us. So what we have to consider now is whether or not this is just going to be a round one, like pass kind of scenario where neither one of us is going to be able to move through their board effectively because his Frostback Bear can't bypass. And if he exhausts the Hammer Knight, that puts us in a really good place to at least maybe put 1 to 2 damage on the Hammer Knight, or excuse me. Yes, 1 or 2, because we could commit a double 3 attack. So he goes ahead and chooses to attack the bear with the knight. And this is probably just a little bit of a new player mistake, because the Hammer Knight's more threatening with alert and root armor as a defensive unit. Because now I can sort of decide if I want to leave his Frostback Bear alone and just kill his Hammer Knight through pure attacks as we move forward here. And so the Frostback Bear can attack into my Frostback Bear, but not kill it. And I can choose not to counter, and then I can just turn around and use Bear, Frost Fang, and Shadow Hound to kill his Hammer Knight. Now, he can have Cole tank one of those hits for sure. And, there's not much we can do about that. So we just go ahead and slam the Shadow Hound. I'm expecting this last card in hand as a Sleeping Widows. And we can do a couple of different things to fight Sleeping Widows here. One, we could take the Frostback Bear, see if he goes ahead and plays it, because we're not going to kill the Hammer Knight at this particular juncture anyways. So I select the bear. I select the Hammer Knight. I just want to try to bait the Cole defense, because I am threatening lethal here, right? So he's better off taking Cole defense here. By doing Cole defense here, what happens is Cole just takes 2, and I'm not really committing anything on my board to that's probably going to kill the Hammer Knight anyways when you just do the math, right? Like, basic math says because Cole gets a block, I can't kill Hammer Knight. So the best I can do Hammer Knight is 4 damage. On a recover 2 would put it at 2 damage, but that does put it in range on the next turn to be able to one-shot it, essentially. Not quite exactly one shot because of the root armor, but be able to take the Hammer Knight through traditional combat if I need to spend that time. And he passes here, so I just take the Frost Fang into the Frostback Bear because I'm only going to take 1 damage, and Frost Fang has a recover 1, so I don't have to commit the Shadow Hound to an unexhausted bear, and we just get rid of the bear before the bear gets to attack. But there's the Sleeping Widows. We expected this. We're going to take a little bit of damage round 1 here. And not much we can do about that because, he can commit a Widow to kill my Frost Fang. And that's probably not a bad play for the Widow. But that's the only thing he can do with the Widows, because he can't attack the Shadow Hound. And he even makes the comment, I believe, if I remember correctly, that, I can't attack Shadow Hound because of the concealed. So I don't know if that puts him off of thinking through this completely. I don't remember if he attacks me directly, so we'll find out here. But we did essentially predict the first 5 with a fair amount of accuracy. So he just goes ahead and makes all of those Widows just attack straight to Rin. And I'm okay with this. A couple of reasons why I'm okay with this. One, with 3 open memories in my list and 2 more books in my list, very good chance that I'm going to bring a focused Shadow Hound online in the next round. And I can stand up in the next round and stand in front of these things. But I'm just going to let this Hound stalk one of them away, right? So he's already down a unit this way. I've stuck 3 units on the board to his 2 units. Again, just playing the permanency game, I have more permanence in play, and I think anytime you can end a round with more permanence over your opponent, you're in a really good place. So, yeah, we're just gonna end the turn here. We're gonna keep that die because if we get the open memories, then we're good, and then we draw up, and so we get a really poor draw here. To be completely honest. The Particle Shield is good if he 100 blades us, because it'll save the Hound and the bear won't die. So, if he spends 100 blades dice on this, we're in really good shape with the Particle Shield. one thing that is particularly problematic here is this kind of simple fact that we didn't draw any allies. And there are allies in this deck, not a ton, but we didn't draw any of the other like sort of tech tool cards. So what we really need him to do is exhaust his Hammer Knight now, right? We need to get that Hammer Knight exhausted, which means we can't attack either because of the 2 shadows in our hand. So we're kind of at the mercy of, does he choose to do certain things, right? And obviously, like, he hit me for 7 in round 1, and we're currently facing a potential 5 attack that we just can't probably take. So if it really came down to it, we'd have to put the bear in front of the Hammer Knight, and he chokes the Rin, which means I can't ice buff the Hound. That's definitely putting me on Particle Shield now, because one consideration for my first round of play would be to go ahead and make a Frostback bear and then ice buff the Hound, and then we're outside of the 100 Blades reach for Hound. And that would allow us to save the root armor for the second Hound. Once we have 2 Hounds in play, I think we're in really good shape overall. But the trick here is, what exactly is Dave going to do as we move forward? So he goes ahead and meditates. He discards Expand Energy. I'm not sure if that was a meditate. Deal 1 damage to Frostback Bear from Slash. So he slashes the bear with Expand Energy. And I go ahead and Particle Shield this. I feel like this is a good exchange because we're trying to dig in our deck for more cards to play this round. And so I actually sort of get the ideal card. I get a Shadow Hound book, right? So we don't, since I can't do the ice buff, I don't want a root armor right now. And I think I just take these 2 dice up a level. And that gives us, it gives me the 2 shadows play for the future. And then it's just sort of safe for me to go ahead and play another bear here and give me the board presence. Because there's a chance, like, I don't want to do Shadow Hound. Yeah. So yeah, we go ahead and draw the bear here. So I feel like this is a pretty good and safe, just like make a good guy play. And so we're now presenting 4 units to his 2 units. So he's going to start feeling some pressure overall. Because, if we were just to attack outright, the Hammer Knight would defend and kill something. Most likely the Shadow Hound we'd get in for, or the ice buff Frost Fang, and we'd get in for 3, probably get in for 4 damage, take him to 6. Not super great to push that kind of damage right now. So there's second Hammer Knight. Second Hammer Knight is a real threat. But we have a couple of different avenues here. So this just, since I drew the second Hound book, we're just going to focus Hound at this point. Big advantage in focusing Hound is I don't think Dave's ready to attack, and I don't think he recognizes that I can play a Hound and just have these units on board that can just fight his Hammer Knights very efficiently. So the only Hammer Knight I can't fight efficiently is the Root Armored Hammer Knight, but I have the 2 shadows. So because I have the 2 shadows, and there's a Strengthen is basically meaningless here. He can make that Sleeping Widow interesting, but because he had to main action the Strengthen, and because I'm threatening Shadow Hound book, I think that really does push my target for the Shadow Hound summon now to the Widow, because we don't really want that Widow to turn into a 4 attack. And so I just make a Shadow Hound and I snipe the Widow, because it doesn't, the Hammer Knight going to 5 versus 3 is nearly meaningless for a bear to block it. And he can choose to target, like either the bear or the Frost Fang. And I think if he eats my Frost Fang up here, I think we're okay. Because he still can't overkill anything because the Hounds are untargetable. And with double Hound on board and their stock ability, it's very unlikely that Hammer Knight's going to do the work it needs to do. And I think Dave did figure out that, like, his Root Armored Hammer Knight needs to be on defense. Just because of that bear attack. So we'll see what happens now. It's back to Dave here, and he's got some decisions to make, and it's certainly not a great position for him to be in. And we talked about this a little bit post-match. Like, he's played Chant of Revenge, and just didn't have a lot of allies for Chant. Like, Dave's already down, he's down to 18 cards. He's down to 1 card left in hand, so we're probably not going to see a ton of slashes here. And unless that last card is Expand Energy. And I think he probably should have discarded the other card and maintained his Expand Energy for a draw. But yeah, we go ahead and see 100 Blades. And this does really get me pretty good, to be honest. It takes me off the 2 Shadows play, and I lose 1 Hound that I didn't get to use other than as a snipe tool for a Widows. And that's a really expensive snipe at that point. We do get our Open Memories back and or out of the draw, and we can't play it this round, but that's going to set up a future round for Hounds. But we do still have the opportunity to play the Frost Fang, so it just changes the board state to where now we're going to go to a double Root Armored Frost Fang, and we can use Bear into Hammer Knight that's not Root Armored, force the Coal block for 4, do it again, taking him to 2, and then using the Frost Fangs. Both Frost Fangs now have the opportunity to kill, and we actually have the ability to kill just outright at the expense of our board into our opponent. But yeah, I think they're just waiting on Dave now. So Dave can summon a Frostback Bear. It's not a great board to summon a Frostback Bear into, to be honest, because the Shadow Hound can just snipe the bear off the board immediately. And, Dave can spend his last card to slash a bear, but he doesn't put him within kill spell range with what he's doing. He can ping a bear and slash a bear to get rid of it, and that would take 2 of his turns in passing double mains, so that sort of telegraphs which bear is going to die first. So I feel like we're sitting with a very healthy and problematic board for him overall. Obviously, are Frost Fangs better than Root Armored Hammer Knights? No, of course not. But I didn't want to open up Ceremonial in this list. I wanted to, again, try these Open Memories, see if they would help me get Shadow Hound books on board better and faster, and just get to a place where we were winning the incremental advantage state. Because I feel like if we can get rid of both of these Hammer Knights, to be totally honest, there's only one more Hammer Knight to deal with in this whole entire matchup now. And I think once we turn that corner, he can obviously Ceremonial him back with a small health pool from Cole, though. That's really problematic. And we haven't seen him play any life gain cards like a Butterfly Monk or something like that to sort of offset that. So he has gone ahead and dealt 3 damage to the Frost Fang that had the ice buff with close combat. And that's a really good play here. There is a mistake, so we go into manual mode because he can choose his Root Armored Hammer Knight, and instead of taking the 1 from close combat, the Armored would prevent that 1 damage, and so therefore the Hammer Knight just gets to snipe that Frost Fang off the board. And that's that's a thing that you kind of have to consider. So now we're in a little bit of a trickier spot. He can't play a Frostback Bear because he commits to the close combat instead. So he feels like he's comfortable enough to not play Frostback Bear and just have 2 Hammer Knights on board. So I think at this particular point, I make the decision to attack. I think I go at the Root Armored Knight. Yeah. I think we're committing to this because we want to get some damage on the Knight. And at the end of the day, this is probably an incorrect line, just to be completely honest with you. Probably the best line of play would have been to use a Frostback Bear, smack the bear, into Hammer Knight, force the coal block, and then we are in a position where we can use all 3 of our units to kill the Root Armored Knight, and we save the 2 shadows for the last night. But I think that this is definitely just a bad attack on my part, to be honest. And looking back on it, I think you're better off taking the Unprotected Knight and getting it off the board than you are to spend dice and time trying to kill a Root Armored Knight when I've got a 2 shadows. So, and my Apple does this from time to time, and basically what happens is it, like, the gesture control zooms Ashteki, zooms the browser, and so that's what happened there. I was playing with a touchpad also, which created some mistakes you'll see in this game a little bit later. So again, we've got that 1 damage on the Frost Fang, but I'm feeling really comfortable about it, because even if he tries to attack the Frost Fang, it's going to take 2 attacks to kill the Frost Fang here. Because 1 attack goes to Rin, next attack doesn't. And he has to exhaust the Knight to do that, and if he exhausts the Knight to do that, I'm in a position where I can finish the Knight off, the Root Armored Knight, and leave an Unroot Armored Knight. And leaving an Unroot Armored Knight doesn't scare me too much. In fact, I think I start figuring out or doing some math on the way this round's going to come out, and realize my best open memory play is probably to get me my Butterfly Monk, because if I get a Butterfly Monk, I can just unit guard, and through the unit guard, I'm able to gain life, and so it extends my life pool. And something we're losing pretty badly on right now is just Cole has taken very little damage, and we have taken a lot. But all that really matters is the last point of life here. So as long as we're alive, we're in good shape. I am a little worried about potential for Molten Gold in this list, and that means that he's got me 5 away from death with a Molten Gold, and this is where he goes ahead and charges up a thing. So I definitely, like, because one of my committed attacks that I was considering was to choose a Frostback Bear to block or to attack the Hammer Knight and get 1 point of damage on it, because that puts it within, it allows the Shadow Hound to now kill it. And he's going to go ahead and overkill here and do the 1 damage to the Frostback Bear that's unexhausted. But now what we have is a really interesting set of events here. I'm going to just attack with the Hound and kill that Root Armored Knight. That does charge the chance, so I'm going to take a point of damage from this, but this 1 Hammer Knight's left, right, to get attacked, and he can't strengthen it now, so I'm going to take 3. That keeps him out of the Molten Gold range for another round, so at least for a little while. And like I said, I feel really confident if I can get through his Hammer Knights that I have a lot of flexibility in my ability to turn the corner. I have essentially the same books on board that he has on board, and I have the Shadow Hound. And the thing that's interesting about Strengthen is I think it's a great card if you can create bypass, or you can create unblockable board states. So like if you're playing like with time now out, like if you have Accelerate and you strengthen with Secret Door on like a 2/1 or a 3/1 or whatever it may be, like that's just 5 damage to somebody's face. And I think those are powerful plays. And I think, you can do that kind of thing with time, but you can't do that kind of thing in just the core set and in this tournament. So, you kind of have to just trade these things off. Like Strengthen allows smaller units to trade up extremely well, but it offers very little in terms of power for a big unit, because you're just like always going to trade. Like I'm just going to trade a Frostback Bear or a Butterfly Monk into this strengthened Hammer Knight. So we pass out at this point. I think it was in my best interest to do that, just simply because the bear was serving as a blocker. and he was never going to get past my bear. And if I attacked with the bear, he was just going to take the 2, and I was going to take 3 in return. So here comes the secret door. So we go ahead and nature ping, and we attack. And by doing this, we have just removed the Hammer Knight before he gets an AoE off. So again, we're going to take a point of champ damage from this. There's not much we can do about that. We got 3rd Hound book in hand, which is amazing. I mean, that's just incredible. So there goes the Hammer Knight. Obviously, Hound dies. Totally fine with this play all day. Like, I will play that round like that all the time. We traded, an existing Hound for 1 die this round to get rid of his 3, his most powerful unit on the battlefield. Obviously, we can face another Hammer Knight here because we could get 3rd Hammer Knight. But I'm not really concerned about 3rd Hammer Knight in this board because, again, we're going to have a double ping Hound on board. So, like, at that point, Frostback Bear can kill Hammer Knight. There's a lot of lines. So there comes the 100 Blades, just kills the Frostback Bear only. The fact that he spent the dice, I think it was, I think it's 2 dice, 2 basics to do that, is just fine by me. Because, our existing Frost Fang takes no damage. So now this is where I'm starting to get a little worried about, like, potentially a Molten Gold. And I go ahead and open memories here. And we do use a nature or an illusion die for this. And again, I debate, like, what am I supposed to take here? Because it is possible that I could just massive growth a bear and win. Because again, he's down to just, not win, but definitely do a ton of damage. But then we're just going to Shifting Mist, and we're going to roll this dice up, this dice up. We just want our nature sides here. We need to make a Butterfly Monk. We need to make a bear. We have 1 more nature die left to sort of use as a ping. And I make the decision also to drop the Shifting Mist here for the secret door. And I think what I've seen so far, that was just a bad play mistake, because we have to meditate so heavily in this deck now, especially with the Butterfly Monk and the Shadow Hound, that I think we're in better shape to keep Shifting Mist on board to prolong essentially our life pool, because he is also winning on the fatigue side. So we want him to play his hand out here, and we want him to make a bunch of things that are really bad for us, or perceived bad for us, that we are prepared to handle through 2nd Hound Book, Butterfly Monk, and 2 Shadows. The Ironworker is just a bonus if we can stick the Ironworker. Most likely we will not. But, at some point we could draw our whole deck and then not have to play any cards, only when we needed them to, and not take fatigue. So, since we haven't seen Abundance from Cole, we're not going to really see that sort of potential abundance damage that can exist from Cole. So the bear basically means I need to make a bear. I don't want to use the Frost Fang as a bear defender. We can, but that exhausts the Frost Fang, and I prefer to keep the Frost Fang as a potentially aggressive unit for something. So, I think we really do want to, try to set that up as much as possible here. So, I debate playing the Monk Book and just letting that happen. But I think the best line is still to play Frostback Bear into Frostback Bear. I don't think that's the wrong line. I hope I don't play the Monk Book, but maybe I do. I do go ahead and play the Monk Book. I'm not sure this is the right line. I'm just going to be really honest with you as we're watching this here. I'm going to ice buff that Frost Fang up. One thing that's particularly scary about this commitment of this ice buff here and not committing it to the Shadow Hound is that my opponent still has a full grip of cards. has at least one more 100 blades in their deck. Very possible they have it in this 5 here. And you just get into a position where he can make a decent sized unit and hit it pretty hard. It's possible that he's got massive growth, right? It's possible that he's got festers in his list. And even if he can stick 1 damage, so like if he strengthens the bear here and attacks, I take 2 damage, my Frost Fang lives, but it's open to then getting festered, right? And I don't want to take the 4 because it puts me too close to death and molten gold, and he's still showing the 2 nature dice. So I'm really concerned about like this 2 damage from the Frostback bear is a massive thing. And that's why I think it was completely the wrong play here to play the Butterfly Monk book and do that. I think my best play would have still been to make Frostback bear. He's not threatening any direct damage other than molten gold. And it's not there, but obviously 2 nature dice up means that he can float those up and do exactly what he wants. So he plays Anchornaut to no effect because of the root armor on the Frost Fang. This poses also a secondary problem because now he can strengthen the Anchornaut to get the 2 damage in, and I can't block it. So, I just keep thinking he's on this plan where he's going to go ahead and get the 2 damage in. And that's an issue. So now I just go ahead and make the bear. So the reality is if I just made bear last turn, the Anchornaut would have gotten a point of damage off, but I could have ice buffed the bear this turn instead. I'm not going to get 2 shadows off this turn. And I'm going to use the natural dice power because I don't need that other nature die for anything here. So we've given up on the Ironworker. We've given up on 2 shadows. And Secret Door is basically dead for us right now, too. So he uses the Final Cry. And I think this is where I'm starting to think this is the end of me. Like, this is where my game is over. Because he's left the 2 nature dice, 3 cards in hand. And how many times have we seen that happen where, you're just going to lose to that. And there's not a thing we can do about that if that was true. We're in a position where he can't kill us through combat. I don't see any molten golds yet. None have been discarded through 29 cards, let's say, plus the 3, so 20, 16 cards or whatever it is, right? It's 5, 10, 13 cards plus cards on board, so 16 cards. But that doesn't mean there's not a 1 of in the deck, and that doesn't mean that he doesn't have it. So I'm just like hoping at this point. It's a hope and a prayer because if he has molten gold, I lose. So I pass back over to him, and this is where he can just win the game, right? Like if he has the molten gold, you just med twice and win the game. And what comes from it is something different, and you'll see here. And that tells me that I have a lot more life in me as soon as we find out he doesn't have this molten gold. It doesn't mean it's not still in the list, which gives me pause because I have to get out of 3 health range just in case those last 11 cards there's a molten gold in it. But it's definitely putting me on a clock. But the Butterfly Monk can create the separation I need as we move forward here. So the Butterfly Monk can't block his bear. That is one thing that it cannot do. But it can block anything else besides the bear. So I think he's got 4 dice left. I got 4 dice left. 4 cards in hand, 3 cards in hand. My board is definitely still got plenty of action left in it with the Butterfly Monk and the Hounds. He's probably has to assume at this point that I'm not playing anything from hand in order to play Hound Book, double Hound Book, attack. I need to make that Hound. And so I knew that he didn't have the molten gold when it took this long to make the decision. And so he's now meditating, and I see him meditate, and that is like, oh no, right? Like this is where I actually, I know I've told you he doesn't have the molten gold, but he was taking a while, and so I was like, I don't know what the while was, and thought, unless it was just he didn't see it. But then he meditated just one, made one nature die, and passed his main actions, I believe. I put 3 Hound books online. It's back to him. So the game's going to come back to me, and there's a chance that I'll just have 8 damage on the field, and there's a chance that I can do 6 to him this turn, which is enough to end the game. So, like, I am getting to a point where, because of Cole's smaller health pool, I can threaten him. So a lot of it does come down to what these last 3 cards are for him, and his dice spreads. I mean, he's definitely trying to figure out how to probably get a point of damage on my Frost Fang. And I wondered, like, as I was sitting here making these plays, like, whether or not it was in my best interest to get those Shadow Hounds moving quicker instead of playing the Bear book or Hound book for ping 2. Like, I only need ping 1 to make the combat favorable for Bear into Bear. And, I can force the Bear block, or I can let him work his Fester magic. Like, I fully suspect a Fester with this dice spread. And so, like, he's got these lines now where he can ping my Bear, attack my Bear, or he can strengthen his Bear and attack my Frost Fang. And I can't take the attack, right, because I would kill Rin. And the Bear can't guard, and the Butterfly Monk wouldn't have been able to guard either. So if I would have just maybe played a little faster here, potentially I could have avoided this play. But I think ultimately, we're not given much choice. Bear's going to attack for 4. He's going to target Rin, of course. Probably what I should have done is just put my Frostback Bear. I did put my... this is where I misclicked. So I couldn't change the defense targets. So it just becomes Bear into Frost Fang, which is going to turn on his Fester. So I think now, because my opponent has nothing on the field, like, since he attacked, I just need to use the Frost Fang for 3 damage on Cole, because I'm fully suspecting the Fester play. So we just need to take advantage of that almost like now. And I don't remember if I do. See, this is just a series of misplays now, because there is no reason to play the Butterfly Monk there at all and let him just kill my Frost Fang. I could just put 3 damage on him right there. And then he's got a main action of Fester, so I still get to play the Butterfly Monk. It's just a complete misplay. Like, I think I was getting tired. It was late at night because he is in Australia. And I think I just totally boned up both of these things. One was a misclick with the Frost Fang Defender. 2 was not attacking with the Frost Fang here. Don't do this, people. This is bad. Okay, I'm very lucky that I was able to, continue to play the game at this point with these kinds of mistakes, because it's very possible that they could have been the end of me. So he goes ahead and festers the Frost Fang, totally what we expected, which is why I needed to just get the 3 damage out of the Frost Fang before he festered it. It also makes him think twice about it, but it was a big enough target and juicy enough target for that. So we're just going to attack with Frostback Bear, because he's still holding the potential to kill my Bear. Like he can still play a Hammer Knight here, right? Like that's still a thing that he can put out there. Obviously, the Butterfly Monk does a great job against Hammer Knight, so I don't worry too much about it. But it is possible that one of those two cards is a Hammer Knight. Okay, so he just slashes the Butterfly Monk. I mean, this is just pure value for us to slash the Butterfly Monk. I am still worried about that last card being a potential like being a potential Hammer Knight. Like he can just med one and make a Hammer Knight here on me. And so if that happens, then I want the Ironworker as a defender versus the Shadow Hound, because the Shadow Hound gets no effect on ping. And I want to be able to two shadows his Hammer Knight if that happens. So, because I just checked and there's two Hammer Knights in the bin. So, that becomes a real thing. And so this is 100 blades. Gets to draw a card off of it. Not a huge deal for us. He's going to kill my Ironworker through slash. Yeah. So, like, not great because we're down to one unit. But again, I mean, you just look at permanency. And I think, again, this is a misplay. Like, there was no reason I needed to meditate the Shifting Mist and get the secret door down other than just to draw a card. And I don't think that's better for me than having Shifting Mist on the board and 3 cards instead of 4. Maybe that's wrong, but I don't know. I think that, we're still in that 3 damage range for Molten Gold. I didn't get out of that because of just the way everything worked out. So, unfortunately, it's not a great place to be. He just pings my bear, does another point of damage. This is going to force my round 1 since he's going to go first. I keep the wolf die because I've got 2 shadows set up now. And I think we're really on our heels here. Like double Anchornaut is not great for us. I can Massive Growth the bear if he doesn't slash it away. He's going to slash it away though. So Massive Growth bear here, if he doesn't play big units, because the Hound can kill anything with 2 health now. And he just goes ahead and chokes me, so I'm not going to get an ice buff off. I think he's out of 100 blades, though. I think that was the last 100 blades. There's a Chant of Worship. Not really concerned about Chant of Worship when he's down to 4 cards in his deck. So we just make a Butterfly Monk, I think, because ultimately if he wants to burn slash cards on Butterfly Monks, like, that just works for us. And so I am giving up on the bear. Oh no, I attack with the bear. Okay. At least I didn't mess up this time. I got my 2 points of damage in. And now it's just back to, again, I mean, since he choked me, I'm pretty sure he's not on a plan where he can Molten Gold me to death. So, like, he's sort of earning incremental advantage. I'm not sure if that was his last choke either. Probably should have checked that in game. Because if he's out of chokes and he's out of, anything other than allies, Chant and Butterfly Monk are just going to trade with each other, and he's not going to get those last value points in. Because he doesn't have enough board presence to push me down. I just am holding a bag of ready spells here. So, but again, I still think the best thing for me to have done was to take my Shifting Mist and, done that. Now we have the Rin's Fury, but Rin's Fury is going to do literally nothing. There's the bear. And so this is a challenging position because I can't make Butterfly Monk. I have to make a bear. I can't play the Anchornaut because I have to make a bear. So one of the things that he just forces me to do is exhaust my bear to Rin's Fury as bear. That's not super great. So, and he meditates some cards away. I just play bear into bear. Don't need the charm die here. But this just gives me a defender. So he can't just come at my life pool. Like he can, but we're just going to exhaust bears. And that's what I'm going to have to live with. I'm going first the next round. So I'm just kind of looking at it going, I need to get through the round. I just wanted to bring Hound Book online and still have the 2 shadows in case there is there's a Hammer Knight in this play. There's one interesting thing I can do. One potential play out I have here is make a Shadow Hound, ping the bear, play an Anchornaut as my follow-up. And bear goes down. And then I still have the ability in that particular stage to make a Frostback bear and make a Massive Growth and a Butterfly Monk. So, but Hound and bear are enough if he can't put a unit on the field. Massive Growth, bear, and Hound are enough if he can't put a unit on the field. It's Xaxes 15. So it's going to depend on what those 3 cards are. And he's not showing any allies, so the chant's turned off. Both chants are turned off. I think that's a real problem if you're playing chant. And I think he would have just been better off. I mean, throughout the course of this game, he would have had more consistency if both of those chants were Frostbites. He'd have just had the opportunity to ping for one without needing to rely on ally death. And since his only allies were so far Ironworker and Hammer Knight, we didn't, and an Anchornaut, I guess. So he meditates, discards, wants to, I guess, make that 1 nature die. We are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and the secret door can be used as a bypass here. If he puts a small unit on the field, like an Anchornaut. But there's the Hammer Knight. Very much knew this was coming. We're just going to summon a Butterfly Monk into that Hammer Knight, because if he attacks me with both, bear blocks bear, nothing happens. Hammer Knight gets the monk, we heal 1. Hammer Knight takes 1, puts us in range of Shadow Hound, stock kill. I mean, those are some of his potential play patterns. He's down to 1 card and 3 dice. We know this is his last Hammer Knight, so we're not worried about Hammer Knight any longer. It's just whether or not there is a Molten Gold on the list. And if he has Molten Gold, we're just going to lose. But he's had Molten Gold killed for so long now that I'm no longer really thinking about Molten Gold. To be totally honest, it's just kind of like, well, he didn't have it early. He's had me within death range for a while with Molten Gold and didn't have it, so I just don't think he has it. Because there would be 0 reason to prolong this game. It would not behoove him to prolong the game. So, If it takes a side action to slash the monk away, we're going to mend ourselves. Yep. The real issue now for him is that if he attacks and commits the attack with the bear, yeah, I think we just need to make Hound here. I'm going to Hound. I debate this, but I ultimately put 2 on there because of the Anchornaut play. Because here's what I'm now thinking. At least this is what I think I'm thinking right now. I don't remember at this point, but I think because I have the double Anchornaut, I can Anchornaut a bear for 1 dice. I can Anchornaut the Hammer Knight for 1 dice, use the Hound to kill the Hammer Knight, Acid Growth the bear, hit for 6, taking him to 12. We go top of round. He's going to meditate out here and kill the 1 bear, but we go top of round, and I have the secret door. So if I get him to 12, essentially my onboard Shadow Hound becomes worth 3. Now, through the double meditation, he's going to get my Shadow Hound off the board. That's a thing. But I can just make another Hound and threaten that same play. It just takes an extra turn, right? It doesn't happen immediately at the top of round, but the inevitability of making Hound into a secret door is real, and he's out of AoEs, right? He's down to 3 cards if he meditates his last 3 cards. But if he meditates his last 3 cards, he also just takes 5 and going to 11. And then, like I said, like if we just deal the 6 here with the Frostback bear that we're planning to deal, he's dead. So we don't even have to go to top of round now at this point. So he's passed over to me. So this is just going to turn into double Anchornaut play. I think that's a mistake. He should have attacked with the bear. At least force me to consider, like, do I take this damage or do I don't take this damage? But now that the bear is gone, yeah, we can intern. He's got to know that it's near the beginning of the end here, because we can actually go 6 and 3 as 9 and win the game that way as well. But we have to get that Hammer Knight out of the way. So we just go ahead and drop a note there. Now, if he attacks with the Hammer Knight, one of the interesting things we can do, is we can put the bear in front and just like snipe with the Rin's Fury also. And we go to 9. He takes 5 from the fatigue, or he would take 2 from fatigue, go to 11. We're not quite to the 12 we need to be at. So I think we just stay on plan because he's passing. We just let the Hound snipe away the Hammer Knight completely. And that does turn on his chance, so we're going to take a point of damage. He's going to get a draw card. I mean, there's some things that are going to happen here from that play, but I mean, I think the only thing he could really do that would be really bad for us here now would be play an Ironworker. And the reason that is bad is because, but he has to main action to do it. So now I get to main action the Massive Growth. And we'll see if he's got the Ironworker. We're definitely got a much longer round in front of us. But I think with no cards in deck and potentially 2 cards in hand and then a Frostback bear, I think we can come out on top of that exchange more often than not, especially with the Hound and the Butterfly Monk. And we still have 7 cards in deck. Like he's going to have a hard time finding a way to get around our board state. So he Anchornauts and kills the bear. But the Anchornaut's not going to stop the attack for 6 here. Taking him to 12. And then, from this point, what you've got now is he's going to take 3 fatigue and die. So I think he meditates away just to ping my Anchornauts away. But I don't even think he gets to do that, because once he meditates, both of these dice, which he meditates a chant of worship, and last meditate was the Ironworker. So there was an Ironworker still in the list. He has to pass main, and I can just pass main and win the game. So yep, and so we just say end turn. And that's that. He takes the fatigue damage, takes 5 fatigue damage, goes to 17. No cards to discard, so I just hit done. And that's the game. So ultimately, I think that Dave played extremely well. Kept me on my heels through most of the game and working through a lot of difficult board states. But Shadow Hounds do bring a sense of inevitability. At some point, they're going to turn the corner on you, and when they do that, they're hard. They're hard to beat because it's hard to stick when you can ping 2 damage on the board any way you see. Like Flash Archer on the board for 3 is a very powerful ability. We have to commit a lot to that, and obviously, in this game, we never had to actually open memories for the Hound book. We were able to hard draw them through particle shields and just regular draws. But the open memories did allow us to get the Butterfly Monk as a tool card, and so we were able in that scenario to toolbox Butterfly Monk, Frostback Bear, and we had Frostback Bear, Shadow Hound on the board with Shifting Mist, so we could just toolbox the Butterfly Monk. And one of the things that the open memory can do for us also is toolbox the Secret Door, which we didn't need in this game at all. But the Secret Door is enough of a threat because it turns your Shadow Hounds into a singular Molten Gold threat. And that's just something that sometimes is needed to push the Hound, across the finish line, essentially. So, we didn't get to Ice Buff. Our plan was Ice Buff Hounds, but Choke kind of put us in a weird place a couple of times. And we ended up Ice Buffing that Root Armored Frost Fang. And if we wouldn't have made some play mistakes there, I think we'd have ended this game a little bit sooner. But bottom line is we did get to pull the W out. It was a great win, but it was also just Dave played extremely well. And for a new player, he was very competent. So I want to give him a big shout out and a thank you for the game. It was very fun. It burned my brain. I sat up for about an hour afterwards thinking about things I did wrong or things I'd like to change about this deck in particular. But I think the list is very good. I think it can be played more efficiently than what I played today. And I definitely am not going to keep open memories in the list. I'll find something else to use in this spot. I'd rather just have those be steady gazes or fadeaways or something, some other, toolbox removal piece over the toolbox of open memories. And I would just make the call to start Butterfly Monk and Frostback Bear and Shadow Hound with Shifting Mist, and then my last card can be a Frost Fang, or it can be 2 Shadows, or whatever I need it to be. And I think that'd be a more common first 5 than what I chose for this match. So I just want to give, again, a big shout out to Dave. If you enjoyed this, if you think this was a informative video on how to play Ashes, or just on competitive Ashes in general, nothing tells us you like that more than a little thumbs up down below. If you're feeling really froggy, you can hit that subscribe button. We are not monetized by any stretch of the imagination from YouTube. So hitting the subscribe button for us just tells us that you think that we're making great Ashes content and you want us to continue to do that. So it just helps us know that we're, it keeps us moving and going forward. Obviously, if you comment below, if you see something you think I could have done differently, please let me know in the comments. I love hearing from other players about things, and I would love the opportunity to respond back, and I do respond back to all comments. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it so much. Hope you have a fantastic night, and we'll see you in the next video very soon.